a couple things. Number one, we'd like to go through the presentations before we start asking questions, mainly because some of the information in the presentation may answer your question. So please hold your questions to the end. After we're done, I'll come back up here, and then depending on what the question is, it'll get referred to Steve or Michael or a board member or whoever, and we'll try to get you the best answer we can for where we are. We are not complete with everything, and mainly because we need your help in getting complete, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the end here. But the other thing is that I'm going to ask is if you got questions other than Druid Hills, this is not the place to bring them up, because what we're talking about here is Druid Hills. The people that are engaged with this presentation are all on Druid Hills committees. If you've got other things you want to get to the board or other things, there's more appropriate places. So if your goal is to talk about something other than Druid Hills today, we need to find you a different venue, okay? So with all of that, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so this is about the fourth update we've done in a town hall format. We've done other things like surveys and that kind of thing. I'm going to recognize the steering committee, and eventually we're going to recognize all the committee members so you know who they are. But I'm the chairperson or team lead, really, and also the liaison for the golf committee. Steve Ballou, you'll be hearing from him in a little bit on the food and beverage committee, and he's the chairperson for that. Bruce Cox, he's the treasurer, and he's the liaison for the food and beverage committee. Jeff Houston, director of golf. Mike Johnson, who's the chairperson of the golf committee. Raj Jones, no relation. He wouldn't claim me. He's the pro over at Druid Hills. Yeah, I'm not bringing that to a vote to the steering committee. Dave Miser, major projects chairperson, and Bob Weber, our general manager. So we started with two questions that we really wanted to answer. What does the community want above the must-haves? And I'll remind everybody what the must-haves were, requirements for the Druid Hills Clubhouse. And then the second piece of that is what will the community support above the must-have requirements for the Druid Hills Clubhouse. Now, we're a little bit further along with golf than we are with food and beverage, because with golf, you've got a limited audience that you're talking to, and it's all around golf. With food and beverage, the whole community has opinions about what that ought to look like. So it takes a little bit longer to get the information we need from the community to answer the question about that. So you're going to hear more about that in future town halls and a little bit about it today. All right, so what are the major things we've done since the last town hall? Well, the Food and Beverage Committee was formed. That was what? See, March, April? So they've been at it for, a while, about 9 months. We had the golf committee representatives, visited sites and facilities, and I know Michael will talk a little bit more about that. We hired a land use consultant, and his report was completed, and we presented that at the annual meeting in terms of what we're going to do, and I have a refresher slide in there so you all get a chance to see that. Meetings were conducted with the golf leaders on what the golf requirements are. We got quite far into that with them. But we didn't talk about the food and beverage in that meeting because that's really a separate topic. And then the golf architect request for proposal, RFP, was distributed and we got responses back, and we're going to be meeting on that after this meeting about what those responses are telling us and what we're going to recommend to the board in terms of going forward with that. The first iteration of the business case for the Performance Center, which is a golf activity, has been completed. You'll see that today. It's the first iteration, so keep that in mind. It's not the end result. The food and beverage focus groups were conducted. That was what, a couple months ago, right, Steve? And I know you've got some of that in there in your presentation, but we did complete those, and we'll give you an idea through Steve's presentation what we're doing with that information. The food and beverage survey was completed to get the community use patterns for food and beverage. A lot of people, I shouldn't say maybe a lot of people, some people thought that that survey is the end of it, that was going to tell us what was going to go in the Druid Hills Clubhouse. It was not designed for that. What it was designed for was for the committee to get information that it could use in helping ferret out a little bit better about what people really want in that clubhouse, so we can go back to the community and get a more narrow focus on what people really are talking about there. And then finally, the first iteration of additional requirements were completed, and you'll see that in a couple of minutes. All right, first the land use consultant, McMahon. This is an aerial view of the Druid Hills property right now. So as you can see, whoops, what happened to me? All right, I'm going to try. There we go, I think. No, it's not working. So I'm going to come up here. Right up here is the existing clubhouse. That's our existing parking. That's the main entry. This is where the 9th green is on Druid, and that's the driving range. And there's an existing parking lot up there that those of you that have been around for a while knows exists. That is probably, the area that we look at for the, what I'm calling the practice green, okay? So this is what the land use consultant came up to as the best use of the land. And as you can see, the driving range and the golf performance center up there at the top, we're planning on putting those over there, and we plan on lowering the range. There's where the practice and putting course will be, and that's where that parking lot was, okay? And then the clubhouse is basically going to be in the general area of where it has been in the past, or where it is now, I should say. So that's kind of where it is. We've also put in here that we're planning on putting covered balconies or decks, if you will, and then those will be covered, and then we'll extend out from there into this area, like fire pits, seating, and that type of thing for people to watch and enjoy the evenings or enjoy the afternoons or whatever they want to do. And then we're also trying to address making sure that we have separate egress and ingress of commercial versus personal cars and trucks. That's been a real problem over there because we have people making deliveries in large trucks. At the same time, we have people trying to get in to play golf and that type of thing. So we're going to try to address that and straighten out a lot of the design issues that were built into Druid. And I would remind people, if you remember the presentation that was given about why we couldn't just renovate Druid, Druid really is not just one building. It's really more like 5 or 6 that have been added onto. So that's why we have some of these issues today, because the original design of the building didn't accommodate the growth of the residency, okay? My favorite topic, soil borings. Make sure you'll tell me if I say samples, right?
I will.
Not being an engineer means that I don't have to be quite as constrained as some. So what was the scope of the soil borings? We were actually trying to get them to do 2 things. One, hire a geotechnical firm that to do the subsurface of the land over there, because we needed to find out what was underneath it. We can see what we can see, but if you're going to build, and especially if the building is going to be a different design than what you have, you want to know what you might get into. So there were 16 borings that were taken to determine the depth of the rock below the surface and the type of the rock that we were getting into. And then we asked them to provide a technical report with the design requirements so that a structural engineer could take that work and know what they're getting into in terms of actual building the building. Here's what we found out. There's hard sandstone was encountered between 6 and 8 feet below the surface in in 2 of those borings, which were 3.6 and 4 feet. What's that? All but 2. Oh, I'm sorry. Keep me honest.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, David, it is. So there were 3 borings that were done on the driving range with, we found rock 6 to 8 feet on those borings. So what that tells us is that elevation is not really going to be a problem. So we're pretty good to go in terms of a geophysical standpoint for the driving range. 12 borings were done in the area where we're planning on doing the new building, where you saw in the other drawing. And the conclusion there was that we should be able to build a 2-story building that will have cart storage on the lower level without raising the elevation of the public area too high. So it's going to be more of a, and this is not the building, it's not the inside, it's nothing about that other than the fact that if you go to Heatherhurst and you see where the carts are stored, that's what we're looking for. And that takes up a lot less space. It makes it more convenient for our workers to get the carts out. It's easier for servicing. If it rains, it's easier for us to get them in. So there's a lot of reasons why we wanted to try to do that. We do understand, one was done in front of the existing clubhouse in the new parking area, and we concluded there that we can lower this to provide a level parking area. So we're trying to make it also, not trying, we're going to make it compliant with handicap legislation and rules and that kind of thing, which in the old building, we're not compliant on some of that. So we're going to try to get that straightened out as well. There will still be some rock hammering that will be required to accomplish the above, but we don't think that's going to be very extensive. So the major goal that we had or objective that we had is what we got. We think we can take that, the study that's there, that we'll be able to look at all of that, and when we hire a structural architect and that, we'll be able to do what we want to do there with some minimal hammering and that kind of thing, but we think that's going to be hammering, or not very extensive. Now, the one thing I'd warn you all about is we took 16 borings. You still don't know what you're going to get into until you actually start digging. So this may change a little, but we don't have any reason to believe that it will. Oops. Okay. I'm going to call on Michael to come on up and give his part of the presentation. What? Oh, I'm sorry. This is the golf course. Man, I'm getting way behind myself. So we let out an RFP for the golf course architect. The shaded area up there that says in scope area for golf architect is what that RFP has to do with. What it has to do with is what will it take, what's the best design for the practice golf and taking the driving range down, and where should the performance center go. Now, we have a drawing that says this is what our land use consultant said looks best, but when we really start getting ready to construct it, we want to have a professional in golf architecture be the person that really tells us this is the best use and the way I would do it, okay? So I should also say about this is that the RFP, the scope of that RFP is to go out, take a look at where things should go for those areas that are shaded, and then also that person will continue on, or company I should say, will continue on helping us do an RFP and selection for the people that are actually going to construct it. And then that person will also, or company will have oversight, be our owner's representative is what it's called a lot of times. They represent our best interests, not the company that's actually constructing it. So we want that kind of oversight from professionals that we know what they're doing, know what the design was, know what the construction plan showed, and that we get what we started out to achieve. So the original and potential building requirements. On your left-hand side, that's the original requirements that we said were must-haves for the clubhouse in that area. So central tee time has to be in there. The director of golf office should be there. The golf shop is going to need to be there. Centralized receiving for golf-related equipment would be there. And food and beverage facility for golfers at that point is what we said. It needs to be there. So the other requirements that we've been talking a lot about and will likely be added to the final RFP when it goes out for the clubhouse would be provide adequate storage for growth. Everyone's told us that's been an issue with the buildings that they've put up, as they've grown out of the buildings. And Druid is an example of that. Now, we may not be perfect, but we want to be a whole lot better than we were when Druid was put in 50 years ago. And then storage for golf carts under the building. As you can see, we've taken a look at that, and that looks like a viable thing. Seating outside around large practice green and driving range. More and more clubs are moving to that because people want to be outdoors. And they would like to have a drink or a lunch or dinner or whatever it is outside. So we're going to try to accommodate that. So the separation of commercial and personal traffic. The separate snack bar area for golfers at the turn. One of the things that came up in the food and beverage group when we started really looking at that is we really need a separate area for the golfers for snack bars because they do what? They turn quickly. And we don't want them getting in a big line up in the restaurant because if we did that, guess what? Nobody'd be playing golf for very long because there'd be a line and nobody being able to get on the tees. So that's now in there. Views of the ninth hole green, fairway, and practice green. That's an aesthetic thing because we want people to have something more than just a wall to look at. Because we've got a beautiful view there, we want to take advantage of it. The porch deck out area for outside covered sitting, eating, socializing areas. And that's why we're going to have fire pits in there because when it gets a little cooler, there'll be an opportunity. If people want to sit out and sit around a fire pit, we can do that. Outside seating for fire pit areas, I already said that. Flexible space and food and beverage area to allow for activities and private functions. Rather than the thinking right now is rather than build a whole bunch of separate rooms in that building, make it flexible so we can do different things in there, whether it's things like games, cards, or other activities, or a private function that somebody wants to rent out an area for a dinner or whatever. We want to try to accommodate that, but not do it in a whole bunch of separate buildings. Do it in one. Or separate rooms, do it in one. Now we're ready. Okay, I'll turn it over to Michael Johnson, who's the chairperson for the golf committee.
Thank you, sir. One thing I want to emphasize of what we're proposing is we're not proposing anything that's new or radical. In fact, we are catching up to what other golf clubs are doing around the country. Collectively, we have talked, visited, or researched over 30 golf clubs around the country. So what we're presenting are what we found other clubs are doing. This is the golf committee. I know not all of them are here, but if you're here, you've seen Greg and Jeff. Carolyn Boyle, she's here. Jim Santee, I know, is in Florida. Nancy Harper, she may still be playing golf today. Jim Morrison, Jeff Narusowitz, Dean Mariani, Ted Tell, and a couple of names. One, Gene Kraft, who is going off the committee this year, put a lot of time in. And we have a new member, Dennis Radford, who's joining the committee next year. This is the Performance Center. One of the things that we have to recognize is right now we are losing sales to all of these places around Fairfield Glade. This is where people are going to buy clubs and to get fitted for clubs. And we want to bring that business back into the Glade. What we're proposing is a 2-bay practice facility. The interesting thing about the honors course is that when they originally built theirs, they built 1 bay. A year later, they tore it down and put a 2nd bay in because of the demand that they were having for club fitting and practicing. One of the things that we believe will happen is one side will be for fittings and lessons. The 2nd bay will be for additional lessons overflow. Bad weather, we can rent it out for people who want to hit balls and not stand in the rain. We've also had interest from PXG about renting the 2nd bay 1 day a month for them to come in and do club fittings themselves. And we think that they're not going to be the only ones that want to use it. This is the interior of what we're looking at. part of what we heard from other clubs when they built it is to be careful of not building it too small. In fact, that was the thing that most of them, their biggest mistake was they didn't build it deep enough or high enough to accommodate golf swings and all the monitoring equipment, TrackMan and so forth, that they use for giving lessons. The putting course, this is something that has gotten really big around the country. A lot of clubs have things on Fridays and Saturday nights where they actually have contests for people to come and putt. We see it being, its use being several things for us. One, it gives a place for golfers to practice putting and something a little more challenging than just a flat practice green. It's also a place where our visitors and families can come and have a contest regardless of their skill level. And thirdly, it's a place to attract people that will come and want to stay in the evenings and use the food and beverage facilities that we put up. And one of the things we do is, this is sort of an example, this is a picture from Heatherhurst from one of our golf packages, and this is what we want the putting course to be, someplace where we can attract people, stick around, have fun, use the facility, use the food and beverage. This is projected income that we think we'll see, and we're being rather fairly conservative based on what we heard from other golf clubs for their revenue. A couple of things that go into it. One is we believe the building will be ready. We'd like the building to be ready in 2024. The club repair business that you see up there right now is a standalone business that Adam does himself, which is when the building is completed, Fairfield Glade will take it over. We've got revenue increases of 5% each year. We're showing a significant increase the first year because that's what the experience that other golf clubs have had. We're tapping it into PXG. As you can see, PXG sales is an extra revenue because they come out, they do all the work, but they give us a margin of what the clubs they sell. So that's kind of like almost free money for us. We think that might turn into something else with other clubs. All the expenses are fully loaded. We've included benefits, insurance, taxes, so forth. So all the expenses you see are fully loaded expenses. We also anticipate that business will be good enough that in the future years we'll be able to hire additional pros to work in the facility. Steve.
And now my turn. A year ago, I stood up here and I said, I don't play golf, but I do eat. Somebody took me serious. The members I have here today, of course, I'm the chairman, Mary Jacobson, vice chair. Lindsay Waldrop, is she here? No? Back there, okay. Mark Carlock's not here. Mike McElroy, you back there. Mike Epler, over there. Raj is our staff liaison for the golf and the food and beverage. Dave Miser, major capital. And Bruce Cox, the board liaison. And Greg Jones is steering committee. I guess I should push these buttons, shouldn't I? All right. We formed the committee back in April of this year. So that was when we first started. Since that time, we've published several magnifieds, trying to keep everybody informed as to what's going on. Hopefully everyone is keeping up with that. We met with the Wyndham, the timeshares, and the package representatives to see what they thought and what they wanted, because they're going to be a major part of this. We represented at the Fairfield Glade Info Fair. We participated in the land use project and put in our 2 cents worth as to what we think is going on, but we haven't got to our building part yet. We conducted an initial survey. We had several people involved in that, and we had our first focus groups. We're going to have more of those. The first group we had came through, we had the quantitative surveys, and there was only had 23% of the people that responded to the surveys. We'd like to have more people involved in that because I want to get everybody's input, because we all came from somewhere else, and we want to put our 2 cents worth as to what we think we want in the new one. And the quantitative focus groups were divided into by number of years here and the permanent residents at Fairfield Glade. Right now we have over 9,000 residents. Their golf packages are over 9,000 annual visits. The average timeshare guests are 55,000 a year. So you can see we have the numbers here. Our next steps, we're going to have some more focus groups, so those people should be getting notified here in the next week of the next focus groups and who all's involved. They're random across the board, people that have responded to it. Get further input from the golf packages and the timeshare groups. I'll be meeting with them in the next month. We're going to finish our business plan with the financials in the budget, present the subcommittee recommendations to the Druid Steering Committee and the Board of Directors and the community, which will be a future town hall. Provide food and beverage input to the clubhouse architect. Whatever everyone is telling us, we're going to try to come up with the best thing that applies to all of us. And like I said, I'm not a golfer, so it's not all about golf. It's just I like to eat. And we're going to work with the clubhouse architect to refine the floor plan. And that's what we're working for. That's our front porch. That's where we want to sit and watch that sunset. Thank y'all.
Before we turn it over for questions, I want this group and the community to understand how much time these people have been volunteered to put in to work on this. This has not been a slow news project for them. They've been really committed. You know, the best way I can tell you that is if I could add up all the hours, but I don't have that figure, but it's been quite a bit. And these people, especially on the food and beverage, they're meeting as late as December 15th. So they've got, what, two more meetings after today. So there's a lot of work that's going into this, and whereas they're committed, we need your participation for it to really be the right kind of thing. We don't want to do something that's wrong for the community. We're being very careful and taking our time with that, and we really do need your input. The best way I can explain it is if you probably don't eat a breakfast like I do, but I had some eggs and bacon this morning. And, you know, there's two animals that participate in that, right? There's a chicken and there's a pig. Well, the chicken's a participant, but the pig is committed. And we need more pigs, okay? But really, the vast majority of the community, what we need, chickens. We need flocks of them. And really, what I'm going to encourage you to do is when you see something, because I know this group gets the participation piece, because I see many of the same faces that I've seen for the other 3 town halls. And please talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to other people that are property owners, and please get them to fill out surveys, or when Steve or Michael or anybody else calls on them to try to find out things, please encourage people to do it. And I know you'll do it because, like I said, I've seen you here multiple times. So it is important, you know, we go back to the these 2 questions. We're getting a lot of information about what people want. Now what we're really looking for, and we still want to know more what people want because we haven't finalized all that, but what we're really looking for from this community is what will you support? You know, we're looking to minimize subsidies wherever we can, and we don't want to have a large subsidy done with this. That's why we're taking the time to make sure that we get your inputs. But if we don't get your inputs, or we get, you know, just a small number of inputs, it may not turn out what the community really either wants or will support. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So with that, we'll open it up for questions. Go to the back. There's microphones in the back. So just
I'm already at a mic.
Get in line.
I'm already at it,
All
Mike. From my card group that just played this morning at Druid Hill, thank you so much for remembering that, you know, we are part of this community. One of the things that I wanted to suggest is when you talk to the architect and the engineers, consider having them put a foundation in that will structurally support a potential third story for future expansion, just in case. It's not going to be that much more expensive, and it could be very helpful in the future. Secondly, my family and I will absolutely support any of the food and beverage. We're not golfers, but we love to eat and we love to drink. So,
You're like Steve.
yeah, absolutely. We would be more than happy to do that. And thank you so much for not forgetting the non-golfing portion of our community.
Okay, thank you. Please go to the microphone because the other thing is that we have a whole nother audience of people that are home that are watching streaming this and will look at it from an archive perspective. So we need to make sure that we capture your wonderful questions and comments.
Nico Sergio. I've been a community club member since 2005. We've been asking this question for 2 years, maybe 3 years. Anderson still owns the driving range as far as I know. We've been working on some type of agreement or a purchase, and all we get the response back is you're working on it. And we were told definitely several times that nothing would move forward until that was settled between us, the community club, and Anderson. What is the prognosis here?
Ken, I'm going to have Ken answer that.
We had conversation as late as this morning with Tom. We are probably one more iteration on a memorandum of understanding with him, and that will transfer the driving range to the community club. So we would expect that we will share that memorandum of understanding in the, more likely at the January board meeting. That'll be available for folks to look at, and then the board will vote on it in February.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. And
Next question.
That fits in with our schedule, because where we are with the schedule is, if you notice that we're going out to get a RFP for a golf architect, they probably, based on the RFP responses we've gotten, they probably won't start anything until after the first of the year, and most of them have, I would say, about a 10-week window to do that planning. So we're still, Nico, on point where we said we would be, that we're not going to turn any dirt or do anything in terms of disturbing any land or anything like that until we know what that is. Okay?
Could you bring up that projected income slide?
I'm sorry?
Could you bring up the projected income slide?
I'll get there.
Oh, you passed it, I think.
Whoops.
Right there.
There we go.
You have something in there called lessons. About a year ago, Jeff Houston stated that either the clinics or lessons, I'm not kind of confused between the two of them, that the money from the money that was collected from that went to the Golf Pro. It did not become part of the community club member. Could we get some clarification on that?
Jeff, I think you're probably the best one to answer that one.
The lesson money does go to the professional, but as you can see, the income of the lesson money less the cost of the sales, there's a difference here that in the progression going out, that when the performance center is built, there will be some split that the club will get some of the lesson money out of that because of the performance center.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hi, I'm Mike Yoakum. I just had a question. The current facility right now, is the lounge or the restaurant area being used for anything at this point in time? And is it able to be used for functions, possibly private parties where you could cater in food? Or can we open up the lounge area just for a place to go and have cocktails in the lounge itself, which would be minimally staffed? It wouldn't take a whole lot, but it would give people to go maybe in the evening for a cocktail or something.
There's reasons why we can't do that. I mean, basically, it's the condition of the building. Rash, where are you? Come here. You get on the steering committee, you gotta start answering questions. Why don't you tell them what the use of that building is right now?
You want all the bad?
Yeah.
The condition of the building has gotten deteriorated bad enough that we saw in previous where we need to tear it down. It's a matter of time. Right now, we even have restrooms we cannot use because to fix them would be a substantial price, and we're trying to minimize that to get to, you know, why do you want to put new siding on something you're tearing down?
I understand.
So in the kitchen and stuff like that, the safety reasons, there's been equipment removed. There is an area where some people are playing cards, but as in using it for food or beverage or anything like that, it's not even, I'm 90%, it's not even code right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm not ignoring you over here. Please get up and come over though, here if you can. If you can't, we'll bring a microphone to you.
Hi, I'm Sandy Greenwood. I'm addressing the issue with regard to the responses to the survey. I know from what we got was the Survey Monkey through email. Is that the only survey that went out to people?
Yes.
Okay, that I think is part of the problem, because I think you have a lot of residents here that don't really look at their email, or it could have gone into a spam folder if they do look at it. Is there any way that you could do a survey that is written and sent out to the residents, or maybe something at the community center where they can put their responses in a box for collection, rather than just simply a Survey Monkey survey that possibly 50% of your residents aren't going to look at?
Okay, so we've tried to create different channels for people to communicate with us. This is one. The focus groups, participating in those is another. This and the survey, and there'll be more surveys. This is an email box that has been set up just specifically for people to ask questions or make comments about Druid Hills. And I know we respond to them because I read every one of them.
No.
We give you a response. So we think we're trying to cover things, and we put articles in the paper. We try to advertise when we're having meetings like this. The problem is that no matter what you do, you're not going to reach everyone.
Well, that's why I was wondering if you could just do it snail mail, because everybody gets their mail in the mailbox, and then this way you're going to have more responses versus somebody who, you know, may be elderly and doesn't look at their computer, or they have friends or relatives that do it for them. So I'm just thinking, based on 23%, that's just not a lot. And I honestly think that if you did it snail mail, just regular old snail mail, or, you know, it would get to them and they would know what to do. A lot of them don't know what to do because they don't get on a computer.
We'll look at that. I mean, we can discuss it. My experience with snail mail is really even worse than electronic mail, because what a lot of people do is they think it's junk and they throw it away.
Well, not if it's something coming from our community. I don't think a lot of people would throw that away.
Well, that's something I think we need to discuss and find out the best ways. But please use the channels that are there, because we do have them. They're set up and trying to get comments in that. And, you know, watch the papers and watch the special bulletins that go out about meetings like this. But we'll discuss that.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
My name is Beth Jones, no relation, only neighborhood.
I was going to say, you sound like you're proud of that.
Maybe. I have two questions. The first one has to do with the focus groups. I attended a meeting. Can someone tell me what the purpose of signing a consent to attend form before I went into that meeting?
You want to take that one, or you want me to?
That was just so we get permission to use whatever information we got from you. Of course, none of the information that we received was classified or anything like that, so it really, just to cover it, make sure we covered all the bases.
Okay, second question is, you had that beautiful picture up there from the proposed clubhouse looking over the ninth green. Is there any way that the two nines could be flipped? That way you could watch the rest of your group come in, grab a drink, go sit out there, blah, 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 blah. You're gonna put stuff out there anyway. Just makes more sense to me.
Well, we talked about that, and I'm going to have Jeff come back up because he was the guy we relied on for a lot of that information.
How's the clicker work, Greg?
You broke it.
If this doesn't work, I ain't standing up here. I was trying to learn how to use the button. So what you got, here is my issue from running the golf facilities, okay? We got 1 and 10T from the staging area where the carts are. I've been told never to leave the microphone. You can see the number 1 tee when we start there. So as you finish 9, you're coming up by 9 green, moving through, coming by the staging area, going to the snack bar, going to the restroom, going as fast as you can, which is important in golf, and then going to 10T, finishing on 18. It brings you by the parking lot, then you can return the cart at the clubhouse. If we flip the 9s, our view of 10T is not as good, and the real important part, number 18 green now becomes number 9. You come in, you got to go to the bathroom, you got to go to the turn to get food, beverage, whatever you want to do. It is going to slow the process down and create congestion there where you got to turn back around. You're meeting traffic coming from 9, going to the bathroom, coming back, where 1T is going to be number 10. I understand where people want to view their people finishing. But as far as the golf goes and making it as best as it can be for everything concerned, I like the way where 18 is and where 9 is here. I understand the views, I get all of that, but we got to understand there's more to it than just being able to sit there and watch your people finish.
So if you can think about that beforehand, we don't have a building set in stone. Can things be tweaked to accommodate what you're talking about?
Greg's telling me he's going to take this.
The thing, please understand where we are with the process. We had a land use consultant come out and tell us the best way to use the land, okay? Now, when we get a architectural engineer in here, they may say that it's going to have to look different. Now, we've told people we want views, okay? And right now, we're saying that the ninth green area as it's currently designed is what we think is the best use. But we're going to push on the professional that we have come in here to look at that and say, well, what do you think? Because the other piece that needs to give a lot of thought to is what Jeff was talking about is how you move around with carts, but also how you move around with cars. And we got to take a look at all of that. So you're hearing where we are now. Could that change? Possibly. But the land use consultant really told us that this was probably the best way to take the opportunity to get as best views as we could have, or can have, I should say. But, you know, we'll obviously be listening to the architect engineer that we hire to tell us the final things about what he or she thinks ought to be, how things should be placed. Okay? Yep.
Okay, she's back. One other thing that I wanted to suggest for the F&B, because everyone here is not interested in subsidizing the food and beverage for those people who don't use it. One of the things maybe to consider is to lease out the food and beverage so that you're paying or you're receiving a set amount of money each month, and let the food and beverage managers for the leasing company worry about whether or not they're going to make a profit. They're the ones that are in that business, and they know how to turn a profit. And that way, we don't have to worry as a community whether or not the food and beverage is going to bring in enough money to not have to be subsidized. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Okay, either one of you two want to comment on that? Okay, all right.
She next to me. Hi, Rose Camarino. 3 things. Where are we going to see our fireworks?
I'm sorry?
The fireworks. I mean, it was gorgeous.
fireworks.
Yeah, fireworks. Can you point out what our view will be up there?
It's pretty close to what it is today.
Is it? Okay, and I'm not understanding this. Okay, so there'll be room to accommodate blankets and seating and wonderful, great. Item number 2, the survey, you do a wonderful job communicating via text. You know, when the facilities will be closed or modified, you know, hours-wise. Perhaps send out a text letting people know, here's a link for your survey. Just a thought.
Okay.
Item number 3, are those surveys per person or per household?
The only way we can track them really is by household, because what we're trying to get is information based on property owners and what they think. But we did have an A and B though, didn't we? For a survey for a home.
Oh, you know something? My views are different from my husband, though.
What's that?
My views are different from my husband.
There was, here, you get up and explain it.
I don't. Yeah, yeah.
The surveys went out, if you look on your card, you have probably just a straight number or one has an A beside the end of it. So it's supposed to go, I've gone out to everybody, whether it had no A or flat numbers. That way everybody got it.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
So,
Okay.
as you can see, you'll have the opportunity for local fireworks and fire pits. And unlike you, my views are the same as my wife's.
Hello,
She's taught me that.
my name is Linda Yates. Before I get into the issue that I want to talk about that, I love Fairfield Glade Fire Department. If we hadn't had Fairfield
No,
Glade...
we're not going to talk about that.
Wait a minute. My
No.
house would have burned...
If you have a question about Druid Hills, we'll address that.
All right. Well, I came here as a golfer and a tennis player. This time of year, or 2 seasons, I play tennis, and I would like not to lose that outdoor tennis court that's a hard court.
Okay.
We took Dorchester away. The
Well,
only
this-
one...
Let me answer your question.
Oh, yes.
When we had the land use consultant do this, one of the things that we realized that if we put a food and beverage facility in there, and we have a performance center there and a driving range there, and we have golfers there, we can't get rid of 65 parking places. So what we're going to wind up doing is we needed to take that land where the tennis courts are to have enough parking up there. Because the other thing that's going to increase is we'll have more workers there because we got more things there. So with all of that, if we kept if we kept the tennis courts there, we wouldn't have room for the parking that we're going to have that be necessary in order for that facility to be even functional.
You're doing a 2-story parking. That should add quite a bit.
Those are not cheap. That I can tell you.
That's really expensive.
Pardon? Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Joe Fitzgerald. Listen, I have a question about the driving range and the situation with Mr. Anderson. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Listen, I have a question about the driving range situation with Mr. Anderson. What is the swap involved in that? How much money or what property is he getting in lieu of? In other words, I want to know, Is it we're talking about apples and apples, or are we talking about apples and oranges? Is it a cash transfer? Is it property? I was told originally it was going to be a land swap. What's the value of our land and his land? And that's what I'd like to know.
We'll make that all public when we announce the memorandum.
That's after the horse is out of the barn. Tell us now, so we have an opinion on it. After you sign the paper and then come back and say to us, oh, this is what he got and this is what we get, doesn't do me any good.
You will have an opportunity to comment on that once we put the memorandum.
You don't know it? You can't tell me now.
I can tell you that the value of the driving range is more than the other parcel.
What parcel is he getting?
I'm not going to tell you that today.
Why not?
I'm not going to tell you that until we're finished with the...
What is he going to do with the parcel?
That'll be up to him.
So you're giving him free rein on the parcel?
He's the developer. He can
But
do what
he can develop
wants
whatever he wants on it?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. It's absolutely correct.
And you won't tell me where the parcel is?
I will not tell you that today, no.
What's the value of the parcel we're giving him?
It's less than half of what the value of the driving range is.
What's the value of the driving range?
Yeah, I think it's just over 220, something like that, 220,000.
So we're giving him a $100,000 property, piece of property?
Less than a $100,000 property.
Ted Landers, 22 Amesbury Court. In the proposed budget, the F&B gets a subsidy of $324,000, which works out to $27,000 a month. That's a lot of money considering all of the people that are here every year. The board has repeatedly tried to make improvements to the F&B in order to increase the revenue, and it hasn't happened. I think this is the golden opportunity to go to an outside vendor, some restaurateur, and have them come in and take the restaurant business away. Because it's obvious from and I'm just going to call it failings because we haven't been able to get rid of the subsidies and they're increasing. And it's not going to get any less when we have 2 restaurants again, that we should put that to somebody else and we should not be in the restaurant business.
Okay.
At this point, we haven't bought any of the equipment that goes in the kitchen of the new proposed building. We shouldn't buy that. We should let the new restaurateur, whoever that is, do that purchase so they get the equipment they want, and they should set the menus. Additionally, I looked at prices. The hamburger is the thing that sells the most at our restaurant, what I understand, and a hamburger and fries at our place is $14. At Red's Ale House, it's $9. At Country Table, it's $11, and at Forte's, it's $9. The first 3 that I mentioned are all 8-ounce burgers. Forte's was a 6-ounce. So you are comparing apples and apples. But you're talking that the average price is about $10 at the other 3 places that are local, and we're $14. So it's not that we're not charging enough for our product, but if we're at 40% more than the competitors for the product, and we're still losing $27,000, having to subsidize them $27,000 a year, to me, that's a huge problem.
And that's why we're looking at some of that in this context. But I would also point out that what you're talking about is a lot of operational things, okay? How we operate that facility. That's a separate conversation than what we're going to put in Druid. But we'll have to marry the 2 at some point. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Hi, Greg. Gary Fitch.
Yeah, I know.
I knew you knew. Just one comment about what this gentleman just said and the lady said before. Everybody thinks for some reason that food and beverage is the only thing that gets subsidized. We subsidize golf, we subsidize the racket center, we subsidize this building, we subsidize everything. And the subsidies for golf, for example, are more than what the subsidies are for food and beverage right now. So, I mean, if I understand the logic of your argument, but basically if you take that to its logical conclusion, we should shut down the golf courses because they cost us more than food and beverage does. So, you know, it's a decision that we all have to make as a community, okay? But realize this, everything gets subsidized here. So the food and beverage subcommittee there said he doesn't play golf. He's paying for golf. He may not realize it, but he is. Just like I pay for the racket center. I don't play tennis, but I pay for the racket center. Okay, now, second thing, I have a little contrary view about participation. I mean, we, as a community, I mean, I've been here for 8 years now, and we've had numerous surveys. We've had board elections. The last board election, if memory serves, we had about 30% of the people voted. Okay? So I would like to take a little bit of a contrarian view about participation. Why don't you talk to the people that are here? Because we're the ones that care. The people that are not responding, ignore them.
Well, that's much more, both of those comments are a lot more complex than what meets the eye. I would tell you on the participation piece, we're going to continue to try to get as many people involved as we can. We want to hear what people think. Because it's going to be your clubhouse. It's not going to be mine. It's not going to be the boards. It's not going to be the F&B committees. It's going to be this community's. So we're going to continue to strive to get more participation and input from people. Now, I recognize, and you're absolutely right, not everyone's going to participate. But we're going to try our darndest to get as many people that can. But at some point, we're going to have to make some decisions. So we're not going to drag this out ad nauseum. We will get to a point where we have to make some decisions, and we will try to listen to as many people as we can get a hold of. Okay? Do you want to say anything else? Do you want to say anything else? All right. All right. Nobody.
Greg, Tom Ratcliffe. I just want to congratulate, first of all, both of the committees, because I think you guys are really trying to take and present us with the best product at the end of the day, so I really appreciate that. Question I have is regarding the focus groups. I know you're early on in the process and so forth, but you just alluded to the one piece that I am hoping comes out in the focus groups, and that's the operations of what our existing facility may have and the expectations more so of the new facility, because I think that's a big piece of what might be happening in terms of things like the subsidy and so forth. So I'm hoping we're including that in the focus groups.
The way this works with the focus groups is we have a focus group to drill down on each of the issues. So right now, we'll have a survey, we'll take the surveys, that'll give us a lot of things we'd look at, and then we'll take those issues and drill down in the focus groups. If that comes up in it, you know, how the operations work, we talk about it in the focus groups to try to get a general opinion and try to come up with a general conclusion. Does that answer the question?
I guess I have to see it. If you tell me you're doing it and it's going to come out, I think it really has to.
Like I said, starting in January 7th, we'll have some more focus groups. We'll be going probably from lists that are already out there and asking for more participation in it. And there'll be a survey coming out trying to get us to what's on the questions will be on that group.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
I want to add one comment to that, though. Do not expect that the focus groups are going to get into a conversation about food and beverage other than Druid Hills. That's what the commission of the Food and Beverage Committee for Druid Hills was and still is. Answering questions about a broader context of food and beverage throughout Fairfield Glade is a different question than what we're going to have at Druid. So I want to make sure that we're setting the expectation correctly so you're not going to see some big to-do about every place here, because that's not what this group is commissioned to do. Okay? Anybody else?
Don Guckenberger. Go back to Linda Yates's question about the tennis courts. Has the racket club been notified of that? And what is their position on losing a tennis court? And do they have a plan to replace that tennis court?
They are notified. They know that what we're doing at Druid. That's number one. Number two, they have done an analysis last year and the year beforehand about the growth of pickleball and tennis here in the Glade, taking some national information and looking at that and getting it boiled down to where we are. There's going to be another analysis done in 2023. So yes, and they present the stuff to the board. We did it last spring and the spring before that, and it'll get presented again this spring. But we need more information around those topics before we can make some decisions. But yes, everyone has been informed. Okay? Anybody else? Okay.
I apparently just missed somebody talking about a $15 hamburger. I just want to say the prices, I believe, at Stonehenge, since we only have one facility really to eat at, the prices really need to be more competitive because a lot of people are going out of town just into Crossville, 10 minutes away, to get an $8.50 bacon cheeseburger. And that's a fact. And I think most of the people here would rather stay close, leave our money here in the community, but the prices on the menu are pretty salty for what you're getting, I believe. It looks like the wait staff also, it seems to be understaffed quite a lot. There is some waiting time. I know there's people with large parties need to make reservations and this and that. But my point is, you can get a better value and better service or just as good of service driving 10 minutes away. And I think that alone is driving people out of using the facility at Stonehenge, which I think a lot of us would rather do because it's close, and it's driving us out of town to spend our money when we really want to keep it here in the community.
And my response to that, I'm sorry, my response to that is we're all on that same page. The thing is what we need to do is, and that's why we want to not just know what you want in Druid, we want to know what you'll support. Because it doesn't do us any good to build a facility and have price points and that type of thing that the community will not support. So that's a big part of why we keep going back to focus groups, and we're going to have more detailed surveys. We need to get to the point that we understand not just what people want, but what they will support on a regular basis.
Sure. And I just had one more thing to add. Closing Fireside and the restaurant there. I'm sorry? You're talking about Stonehenge. No. Okay. Yeah, I understand. But anyway, by shutting that facility down, I would assume is saving money because we don't have operation costs and overhead at that particular facility, which you would think would allow for more competitive pricing at one facility for the money that's being saved by not having operational costs at the other facility. So therefore, I don't understand why the prices seem to keep going up when we're only operating one restaurant.
Okay, so what I would tell you about that is that's why we need to look at the price points that we would have on Druid Hills F&B, and that's the kind of planning that we need. And we're going to eventually get out to residents and ask them, what price points will you support? And that's the way we're going to have to go about it. We have one facility, that's true, and we know what that subsidy is going to be for next year, but that's a whole different conversation to get into about Stonehenge and Druid. We are focused on Druid. And the thing is that a reasonable expectation is, yeah, we close down a facility, so yeah, we save some operational expense. But those of you that were around years ago and saw what the subsidies were when we had Stonehenge, Fireside, and Legend can remember that they were a lot higher than they are now. And this year, in the last 2 years, you've had another factor, inflation. And that's affected us both on the materials that we use, and it's also affected us on the cost of the cost of labor. So there's a lot to unwind with that, and that's why we're going to be careful about going back out to the community and not just figure out what you want, but figure out what you're going to support.
Thank you.
Ted Landers, last thought. It's time we need to think outside the box more. So we're doing this $27,000 subsidy. Is there a way to load some of that money onto people's individual cards and say, use it or lose it, kind of like a country club does that you would join? In the hopes then that if the money is on the card, that us residents would then go and actually use it at the place. And it doesn't have to be a ton of money. I mean, you're going to divide it by just the owners here. But if you did that, I think you would find that they would exceed the cost of what that stipend was by them buying alcohol, or there'd be family members that would go, and you'd get increased usage. I think just giving a stipend solves the problem of the cost, but it doesn't encourage people to use the facility at a greater percent of time.
And that's the thing we're looking for, is getting more people to use the facility.
And you just load the card, and it's a 30-day or it's a 45-day deal, and you use it or you lose it.
But again, that is a discussion for a different time for mechanisms like that, and they have been talked about, is because there you're not just getting the person who uses the facility, you're affecting the whole community. And that's a broader conversation than what we're doing at Druid Hills.
Well, it's the same dollars. You haven't changed the dollars. It's subsidizing the restaurant. It's just the manner in which you decide to subsidize it. Rather, you do it as
you're making one thing mandatory for everybody, as opposed to giving the people the opportunity to decide whether or not that facility has the food, the price points, all of that I want. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that all of that needs to be discussed in a different forum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jack Giron. I live on Moneta Drive. I would comment that the sound system from back here is great. The sound system from up there needs to be replaced. It's horrible.
Really?
But the point being is, I think that if we got the right design, the right ambiance, and right feel of a building and a facility, in Cheers, everybody knows your name kind of place, casual country club, nobody would be arguing about a $14 hamburger. The line would be long to get in. That's just one person talking. If we had the right space and the right feel, nothing like Stonehenge, I would say, dining area, but something more like an Irish pub. The feel of ambiance in a country club, nobody's arguing about a $14 hamburger.
And I'm going to quickly agree with you. That sounds like you're doing advertising for the Food and Beverage Committee, and that's a good thing. But the fact is that there's no one in disagreement, but what we need to figure out is what does that venue look like and what the price points are, that will become a reality. And that's why, again, we're looking for chickens. We want you all to be participating in that. Because if we get a good response from the community, we're on much firmer ground about doing something. And that's what we're looking for. But no one's going to disagree with you. That's what we're looking for. If you really take a look at the design that we had the land use consultant do, what we're trying to make that is a destination, not just a diner or a cafeteria, or for that matter, even a driving range. We want people there in the evenings. We want them there in the afternoons. We want them there for the 4th of July. We want them there for Christmas. Well, not Christmas maybe, but that's a different story. But we want them there having a good time and not wanting to leave. That's what we want. Now, how are we going to get it? That's the trick right now. Okay? But I certainly agree with you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Karen. I know you're talking a lot about Stonehenge Grill, but for one thing, we've been there. Stonehenge Grill is too small. You want all these people to go, and you can get 50 people in there at best, 55 maybe. Outside in the summer, you got maybe another 20. It's too small. You want a 9,000 member community to go to a place where you can fit 55 people. Somehow the numbers don't work. It's just not reasonable to expect a large number to go there when you can get 50 people in at a time. How long are you going to have to wait? You're going to have, you know, the line out the door because it's too small. And I hate to say it, but we spent $15 on a dinner for my husband the last time we went, and his side was mac and cheese, and it was Kraft mac and cheese. Because you know Kraft mac and cheese, right? The orange powder, there was orange powder still in it. It was Kraft mac and cheese. There was no way around it, and you're spending $15. And you're getting 99 cents worth of mac and cheese from Kraft. You know, so the meals aren't worth the price, for one thing. And you want 9,000 people to go in a restaurant that houses 55. I mean, so you have to look at the number. If you want people to go, you got to have space. So this Druid Hills, if you're going to make it the same size as Stonehenge, where you're going to have 55 people and you want 9,000 to go there, you know, you're going to have to maybe adjust the size. It's going to have, you know, everybody says, well, we're not going to make it as big as Legends. Well, you can't make it as small as Stonehenge either.
Let me correct you with that, because that's rumor that I would like to correct. We don't know what size this facility is going to be, okay? And we won't know until we know what the requirements are. And when we get the requirements down, we'll size it appropriately. We'll have professional help with that. But to even make a statement that it's not going to be as large as Legends, or it's going to be as only the size of Stonehenge, would be incorrect at this point. We really don't know that yet. So you can help clear up some rumors too, because I hear them as well. Boy, do I hear them.
Greg, just a couple of things caused me in this discussion to think. It'd be interesting as F&B goes through their focus groups and so forth to show us what the community is looking for, the 9,000 residents, if you will, and what are the 55,000 or whatever that number was, timeshare people looking for? Do they align? Are they vastly different on it? And you know, that's going to come down to capacity and everything else, because I venture to say some of our existing problems happen where residents can't get in, and therefore decide to go elsewhere.
You'd be surprised on how closely we align with a lot of the packages and the Wyndham groups. Now, we do skew off in other areas because admittedly we're all older, so we don't fall in exactly along with what they want. But we're trying to take everything into the thing, because it's got to fit. It's a puzzle. Everybody's got a piece of it, and we got to fit it all together. And right now, we're all over the board with it. We're putting the pieces together. It's starting to get interesting right now. But I'm meeting with the Wyndham, the timeshare groups, and the package groups over the next month, and I'll have more answers then, and then we'll see how it all fits together. Because like I said, I want to eat. You know?
Hi, I'm Ellen Claus, and we've lived here for almost 15 years now. We're very, very happy with the community. But when you think about what is attractive and what will draw people in for the food and beverage, please consider what Fireside was and can be. Because I miss it terribly. And there's no reason not to have, you want people to stay and drink and eat, that's the place that it was. And I know the building is kaput, but you need to think about that and what will keep people there. Anyway, that's my opinion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Jeff, and I'm actually a newbie. I just moved here in April. Maybe an online ordering system when you do open the doors. It's just a suggestion.
Okay.
I do a lot of carry-out, and if I could just go online and do the order, it seems like, you know, at its infancy, it might be something you could add in fairly easily. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Beth Jones again. Just to Steve, one comment. The focus group I was in, there was, what, 6 or 7 of us. And good luck trying to please everybody, because the opinions in just that one group I was in were all over the place. Some people want fine dining, some people want a pub type, so good luck, Steve.
See, nobody wishes me good luck.
Yeah, hi, my name is Locke Kelly, longtime resident. Hats off to the people in the golf committee and the food and beverage committee for, doing their part and trying to gather up all this information. Just a general observation. I don't know if the rest of the audience shares it with me, but it's kind of a lopsided presentation today. The golf people have a lot of detail, where I can go out in town and get different training and et cetera, and how that folds into a spreadsheet. The food and beverage people seem to be behind that bow wave. Would it be profitable to the food and beverage people to help them get up to speed maybe a little bit more, to have some meetings like this advertised where it's just food and beverage, to get some focused input, because it seems like 23% participation, et cetera, maybe they're not getting the input. So if we had some open room discussion of a larger population to come in and give them that input up front, maybe that'll help them get up to where the food and beverage people are. And just a second question, all things golf at the new Druid Hills project seems to be under one manager, golf. Will all things food and beverage in that complex all come under the food and beverage director at the time?
That is certainly one thing we're discussing, okay? In terms of your input question, that's a fair question. We can talk about that in the committee. But one of the things that should be recognized, and I said that at the beginning, and I know the food and beverage folks, because I sit in on many of their meetings, they do get frustrated because they aren't where golf is. But golf actually had an easier task. Their task was to take a look at what things are going on in golf and look at that and get it into a context for what we do at Druid. And you guys have been to how many facilities? Over 30, yeah. So it was easier for them because of what the scope of their work was. With food and beverage, because we want to take care of both the golfer and the non-golfer, okay, and the guests and the package and the Wyndham, the timeshares, it's a more difficult thing because you've got more cats you've got to herd in. Whereas if you just say, well, what am I going to do about golf? It's a lot easier because we knew we were changing the course, okay? What we were talking about are some of the outside things that we're seeing in trends of different country clubs and communities like ours that they're having, and how does that or does it fit in here? So please don't take that, and I want to emphasize this, and I want to make sure everybody understands it. Food and beverage will get there. We will get the inputs we need, whether it's through this, through emails, whatever. We're going to try everything we can. But they're just a little bit further behind golf because their scope was a lot bigger if you really think about it.
And I would hope the board would use this process on this project to then refine some of the other processes across the management of Fairfield Glade writ large. Because you've got a good thing going here, you've got good focus, but I'm hoping it transcends Druid Hills itself into some of the other weak areas of the Fairfield establishment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deborah Kelly. I'm with that guy that just talked. We bought our first slot in Fairfield in 1979. There was an old railroad thing out at Druid that was the pro shop. There was one golf course, Druid Hills. So it's changed a lot since, and we've been coming all those years. except for when we lived in the Philippines or England or some other place when we still paid dues for our lot, but we, never came to visit. A lot has changed. When we first came to Druid Hills, a gentleman did not get in the dining room, the main dining room in the evening, without a jacket. And Fairfield had jackets, green jackets, that they would put on them for them to come in. A lot of women wore long dresses, and they had nice affairs, special parties and things like that in Druid Hills. So a lot has changed. So we look now, and yeah, I'm personally am more interested in something that is more than just a hamburger. Hamburger's fine after golf, or a hamburger's fine sometimes, but a hot dog and hamburger is not what I want for dinner in a nice club. Secondly, this idea of food and beverage, fine, we're talking about it for Druid Hills, but it does not encompass food and beverage across the Glade. If I go to Stonehenge right now and I want a non-alcoholic beer, I have to go in and get a waitress in Stonehenge Grill because that's food and beverage. If I want one at the little cart, they don't have it because the pro of each club owns its own food in that clubhouse. There is no all-over economy of scales food and beverage, and I may be totally wrong. It is what I was told. So if I go out golfing with my ladies club, did the different golf courses, and I want a non-alcoholic beer, I can't get it because the pros don't order it. There's no economy of scales. A Cisco truck goes to all the different places when they come here. There's no centralized planning from a food and beverage perspective, as far as I know. So yeah, you can say this is only food and beverage for Druid Hills, but I think there's a bigger problem with food and beverage than just Druid Hills, period. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I just want to comment on what this gentleman over here said about maybe more of an upscale atmosphere. We're not looking for a Winschuler steakhouse that's Wadeline on price. We don't need tuxedos and bow ties. But we're looking for a nice, casual ambiance. I think, and I speak for myself, but I think a lot of people here would definitely want to go to that type of a facility, more of a country club look, something a little fancier, like, not to get off the subject, and I won't for long, but as an example, is at Dorchester. I think they have got such a fantastic facility out there that could be turned into an awesome dining facility. Great views. Anyway, back to my point, we have so many sports bars in this area, and we're just looking for a little bit, something nicer, a nicer dining experience like that woman just said about, we can go get a hamburger anywhere. And most people are going to go out of town to get the same meal, if not a better meal, for half the price of what we're paying at Stonehenge. So I would just like to say, I would like to see Druid continue to be like on the order of Fireside like it was. A little nicer ambiance, low lighting. We don't want to eat in a cafeteria for dinner. We want to be relaxed. We want to have a nice bar, a little bit of brass, a little bit of class. And I think I speak for myself, but a lot of people I think would also agree that we want something just a little bit more upscale for dinner. And that would give two options. If people want to go get a hamburger, they got Stonehenge. People want a little bit more elegant dining experience, they could go to Druid, more of a clubhouse type setting.
Anybody else? Speak now or forever hold your peace till the next town hall. Or email or conversation or however you do it. Anything else? All right. Again, thank all of you for coming. I hope you're learning a little bit more each time because we are. So thanks again.